Should you as an artist use AI? Is AI art? And are people who create AI art artists? We'll be addressing some of those as well as other concerns today here in the Digital Paul Workshop. Normally I have a catchy phrase and stuff, but this is kind of an unusual video for me to do. And the only reason I do it is because right now I see a lot of things trending in social media about complaining on AI art. And so I'm going to address some of these issues and concerns in this video. Although if you've been a part of my channel for a while, you probably already know my personal views, but I'm still going to go through and explain everything. And so first thing we're going to start off is people are complaining saying AI is stealing artists' work. And they usually are referring to the artist's style. While I do not know about many other countries, but I know here in the US, copying style is not illegal. At least I have never seen it to be. In fact, most art classes, at least all mine through both high school and college, we learn by copying style. I remember even going back as far as 8th grade, even though I've been drawing since I was young, I really got a little bit serious then drawing comic book characters. And so I would look at Spider-Man and Venom and all of them, and I would draw them what I see. I am copying an artist's style when I do that. Same thing when you go to art classes. In a lot of my drawing classes, we had artists that we copied from. They would request us to go get like an art book, and we will see a picture maybe of a statue or a drawing, and we were to try to copy it. Sometimes grid, sometimes freehand. All of it's a form of tracing. Even still life, you are copying the art of nature. You're training yourself the art of nature. It's tracing without putting the paper over it is what you're doing when you're looking at something and trying to replicate it in a form of drawing or painting. And this, as far as I can ever tell, is not illegal to do. In fact, even in my graphic design class, a lot of us based our projects on artists we have studied. Some of it be postmodern, like Mondrian, get some of my artists correctly, Saul Bass, I think it was Paul Ron? I'm trying to remember. I'm trying not to confuse him with the congressman's name, but there is another one that was very popular in the newer times. I did a project on him, I can't remember his name. But as far as doing style, and matter of fact, if it was illegal and you get struck down, a lot of YouTube channels would be struck down because there are many YouTube channels based on drawing a character in the style of Naruto, in the style of Dragon Ball Z, in the style of Demon Slayer, Attack on Titan. And so if this was really a crime, you would be seeing those being taken down if it was viewed as stealing. Now, what is not legal to do, and this is going to upset a lot of commission artists, is you do not have a right to draw a character that belongs to someone else, especially if you're going to sell it. So even these YouTube channels that draw like Luffy in the Attack of Titan style, Luffy is owned by a certain person or company. I don't know who they are specifically. Like Warner Brothers owns Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse is owned by Disney, Spider-Man owned by Marvel, which is not owned by Disney. But anyway, they're owned by their creators or rights holders, depending upon the legality of it. And so you do not have the right to draw a Spider-Man even if somebody pays you to do it without the permission of the rights holder of Spider-Man. I've heard a report one time that Disney sued a school because they had paintings, a mural or something on the wall, I think it was a school, could have been a daycare, of Disney characters. Now, whether the school or daycare commissioned somebody to do that or somebody did it out of kindness, it still was illegal to do without Disney's permission. Now, the gray area comes into that there are different laws based on different forms of art and use, and most companies usually turn a blind eye, whether it still doesn't make it not illegal, for fan art. Now, some won't pursue you if you just do the occasional commission or somebody, oh, I want a Garfield, Now, I'm not going to say that I don't know anything about whether or not the person who owns Garfield would come for you, but if somebody will commission you to do it, if they choose to turn a blind eye, that's them. It still does not make it less illegal. Now, most companies won't go after you unless you're just mass producing, but again, it's still the legality of it. And some of the laws may vary on certain areas on what you can do. Like some may say, well, if you do this art of somebody, but you only do like less than so many pieces, but you're going to have to look up in your area and see what those are. But that's just a general rule of what is legal and what's not. So I could do a work as copying Mondrian style. I could do a work copying Andy Warhol style. And the reason I'm saying that's because actually I've done pieces of artwork in my graphic class, in my digital photography classes, based on them. Even in my regular art classes, I think I did Mondrian. Mondrian's just easy to do. The thing is, and another thing that's illegal, I can't do a piece like Mondrian and try to sell it as one of his work. I can sell it as my artwork that's been inspired by Mondrian, but I cannot sell it as his, nor can I copy an actual work of his. So like, like Boogie Woogie something. Broadway Boogie Woogie, I think is one of his famous one. I think Busy City. I know White on White's famous. I can't copy any of those and sell it because then I'm infringing on copyright. But I can be inspired by his work and do similar stuff using his style. Same thing with like Picasso or any other Salvador Dali. I can be inspired by their style as long as I'm not actually copying an actual work of theirs, or I'm trying to pass it off as one of their works. There's where you're getting kind of some illegal stuff there. And so that's kind of when you go down to stealing and what is considered actually by the law, I should say, and what's not considered stealing. Now, some people will say, and the next part is, some people will say that it's not art because the person did not actually create it himself, it was the machine. And this has been actually a debate even before AI in art. Even go back probably, I know for sure, probably about the 60s. Because Andy Warhol is one of the earlier ones I've known that kind of did this. He had the factory, and there were some art pieces in the factory that were created by people there that Warhol was credited as the artist for. But one of the more modern artists that's better known for doing art without actually doing it themselves is Jess Koons. He hires people to create the art for him. He has the idea, he has the inspiration, but he does not create. And so there's been a big debate whether or not this is considering art or not. To me, I don't see no difference than hiring a person than buying a paintbrush. A tool can come in many forms. Now, I know some people's going to be upset because I'm referring to people as tools, but in a sense, when you are an employee for somebody, that's exactly what you are. Now, it does not make you any less human. It's just recognizing that you are being used to do something. I know some people, I'm probably making it sound worse than what it actually is. So, yes, one could debate if it is being an artist, but like I said, in history, and I think in a lot of the Renaissance period, the 1800 periods, a lot of guild masters of art guilds were credited to art that the guild members did. And this goes back to training style. And a lot of these guilds, you learned under the guild master. He was already usually an established artist, but you were trained under his style, his way. That's why so much of the classical art has a lot of similarities. You actually, for me, I actually have to know who did the art because I have never been able to tell any difference in their work to know, well, this is Michelangelo, this is Rodin, this is Donatello. I personally have not seen no difference. It was not till more, I think, the Expressionist period where people started trying to develop their own styles. At least, not that I could tell. It's been over a decade or two since I've covered art history. Now, another thing, or another point people try to make, whether AI art is because they do not spend time developing skills to make it, or the amount of time you put in working. And that's kind of not true because it does take a lot of skills to learn how to prompt. And some of my past artworks, I have actually struggled with it, but we're going to get into some actual artists challenging this notion. One of them, going back to Mondrian's white on white. It's a white piece of paper tilted on a white canvas. Very simple, very simplistic, not a lot of work, yet it's considered art. But when Marcel Duchamp, I think, put under a piece of art, or what he was calling art, which was a man's urinal in an art show under a pseudonym or a different name, and called it the fountain, people rejected as art. So why was Mondrian's white on white art, but the mural not? The urinal, Duchamp did not actually design it himself. Someone actually spent time designing it. Why didn't they just make a rectangle with a square box? Why didn't they just make it a square box? I mean, there could have been a couple of different ways, but yet they designed it the way they did it. They spent hours working, but it's not considered art. And that's one thing Marcel was trying to challenge, is our concept of what really is art. And that kind of moves on into our next thing, which is that it can be mass produced. And this is where things were really classified all the times as high art or low art. AI can indeed be mass produced. And some of this kind of got started with mass production with the Bauhaus. I don't remember the Bauhaus became before Andy Warhol, even though Andy Warhol did do some mass producing. Probably should have looked that up. But the Bauhaus introduced manufacturing to art, where you can mass produce art for the masses. They no longer wanted art to be just for the rich and the elite. They wanted the common man to have it. And AI kind of is doing that. Not only is it allowing the common man with little money to be able to purchase an artwork, it's also allowing those who don't have a lot of money to buy supplies to get in to create artwork. And so it is considered that. Now, other things that were considered low-class art for a long time, and I think it's just now kind of getting out of that state in some stuff, was comic book art. A lot of comic book art, especially in the early days, I think up at least to the 80s, maybe I think the 90s might have started switching over, even though Andy Warhol did use some of the print media that was used in comic books for some of his. In general, comic book art was not really seen as real art for a long time, or it was considered lowbrow, low-end, low-class art. In that case, you could probably say AI is the same thing. AI is to say like Salvador Dali's paintings as a TV dinner is to a five-star restaurant chef's cooking. You have different qualities of art, just like you have different qualities of food. Because for me, if a child draws a stick figure, or even if an adult draws a stick figure, it's still a form of art. And I've covered this before in a past video, but writing itself is a form of drawing. When you write words like letters, you are drawing sound. I think they actually brought this up in the 13th Warrior, that movie of Antonio Banderas, took me a second to remember his name, draws sounds. And most of a language and stuff came from drawing of animals. I mean, the A was originally an ox head. In the current modern alphabet, it was developed in the Mediterranean by the Egyptians and Greeks and some other cultures, I think, were involved. Now, some people say, and this I kind of addressed this a little earlier, but some people say it's easy because all you do is throw in a few prompts. Again, you can throw in some prompts and create some nice little stuff randomly. But when you really want to get creative, it's not easy. And as we can see here, I try to create some scenes with 2 characters. Now, I can create generic 2 character scenes, and it is fine. But when I'm trying to create specific characters, I've had trouble, and trying to get it to work out, it does not always do what I want it to do. So this requires learning new skills of prompting, of using other stuff. I think control net's one. There's even some that allow you to personally, where you can model. And so it does require a certain skill level if you are seeking to create something specific. I know trying to create my original backdrop to get what I want, I never could get it to tune into how I want it, so I went with the closest thing. One of the issues I have, like we see here in this picture, is I was trying to create a desktop with just a blank monitor screen, and for some reason automatic 1111 could not understand I didn't want anything on the screen. And so yeah, if you just put it in and just let it random generate, that's no different as just bringing a picture into Photoshop and throwing a few filters on it. It's very simple, it's very easy to do, but when you're actually trying to create something specific, you need to know how to use that tool. You need to know what settings to go to, what words to use, just like you need to know how to use a paintbrush to give a certain, and what settings for a certain stroke, and how to know how much pressure. And this still does not exclude that you need to know the basics of art. You need to know the principles of art. You need to know the elements of art. And even if you're getting into being a graphic designer, you need to know the elements of graphic design. AI can do a lot of work, but when you've got a specific goal in mind, it doesn't know how to do that without you knowing and directing it. Now, this has probably been the biggest one that people complain about, and that is AI will take jobs away from people. Welcome to the history of innovation, people. Every time something's been innovated to new to make life easier, it took jobs away. So, it's not much to say. But no, really, let's get down into some history of this. I mean, I'm not just simply talking about how sails took away the need for slaves to row ships back in the olden days, and how the steam engine took away the need to have all the people on the ship for the sails. It's just been part of that thing. I mean, I'm, for one, am grateful that we no longer have to get up and all of us has to farm our food, that the tractor can do all the work for us, or if you have just 3 people in the field instead of having 50 people in the field trying to get things done. 3 people in the field with tractors and a truck get more done in one day than 50 people will get done in a week. So I am one thankful for innovation and animation. So one of the next big complaint I tend to see from people is that it will take jobs away from people, will be replacing people. Well, welcome to the history of the world with innovation, because that's all new technology has ever done since we've invented the wheel, is that it has replaced the need of having to use a lot of people to do something. Like the sailboat or the sails on the ships, when they got innovated, replaced the need of slaves. Like how the steam engine replaced the need of sails, so does technology always replace the need of having to have a whole lot of people. This, I know this is probably scaring some people, but let's get through some history so we clarify things. Why is a good and bad thing for some. Let's take the original Snow White movie, how it was made. It had a team of people. Just to do the whole parallax effect, you had to have a special camera with about a handful of people operating it. Now you can do that with one person on a laptop with a free software for editing. I kind of covered this in my video on how to make parallax effects. But a lot of stuff that you could do on Snow White, you can do now by one person or maybe a handful of people on a couple laptops. You might need a few extra people just for the voices, more than you do for the actual animation. But it's usually easier when you do have a few specialties. You have one person does background, one person does person, and one person does editing. So, yeah, you can do it for a whole lot less now. So I don't see people wanting to ban computers because it took jobs away. And the same thing, and that's something else with computers. When the PC first came out, people were fussing about taking jobs away. Yes, it did, but it also created jobs, and let me explain this here. When the PC came about, big corporations did not need to have the huge staff that they needed. And so they could cut down, because now one person can do the work of 3. Your secretary now can do your bookkeeping and your graphic design layout for your flyers. Not necessarily was always a good idea, but they could. At the same time, the PC allowed the individual who couldn't afford to hire staff to be able to do their work. I may not can hire me a designer, but I can at least design me a brochure for my start-at-home business of doing florist work, you could say, or cooking. And you can keep your bookkeeping on it. So it allowed the individual person to do that. And it also opened the doors for a lot of people getting coding. That's why we end up getting websites like eBay and Poshmark and Fiverr, where now people can work at home. And with the development of cell phones, we got people video editing. So all these things, took the place. The photographer took the place of the painter, but yet we still have painters. Digital photography took the place of traditional photography. The traditional photography is more done as a hobby than a job now, unless you're talking about high-end art again. Then you might find it there. But the digital photography took its place for most of everything. And most of us are now don't even hire a photographer. We got such good cameras on our cell phones that we do it ourselves. Still does not replace the person knowing actually how to take a good picture versus taking the ease of a picture. One example of that is years ago when I still have my old digital camera, but I was at a member of my church wedding and I had my digital camera. The photographer she had hired, I think, had the old film camera. But I took pictures anyway just for fun because I like taking pictures. And of course at the reception they had, I think disposable, no, I think that's a different one, had disposable cameras. But anyway, I took some pictures, placed them on the disc, and I gave them to her. And the next Sunday, she came back to me and said I did a better job taking pictures with my little $50 digital camera than the professional one that she hired. And that's because I actually went through photography class. I learned about positioning, how to, and same thing with art. You learn about how to set up things. You learn about layout. This is why the art principles are elements, design principles, even the stuff learning in photography are important to know, even doing AI. It makes the difference between doing an okay work and doing a great work. And so, yes, digital work, digital PC, that took jobs away from people, but it also opened doors. Because of digital, because of stuff, I could have gone into photography real easy. I went and did some videography for weddings for a while, taking my skills that I had learned from art class and stuff. And so it allowed me, thanks to the cheapness of technology, to actually get into it, because I love editing. I love video. Why do you think some of my videos are on editing for? This is something I like to do. And technology has made it easy for people like me who don't have a lot of cash to get in and doing it. Same thing with AI. AI will replace jobs at big companies, but you're going to see a lot of small people who don't have the cash, who don't have the connections to get their stories, to get their ideas out there using AI. And right now it is a hodgepodge mess. You got a ton of people just producing a lot of stuff. They're mass producing it. They're making the McDonald's burgers. They're not making the steakhouse burgers. But eventually you're going to see some of the diamonds in the rough shine. You're going to see some people come out who've taken the skills of art and combine it with the prompting ability AI to create some masterpieces. And so that is one thing I am looking for and I'm excited about, is the future of creativity that we're on the edge of. And if you're wondering if I sound like I'm trying to hold back a cough. I've been sick lately. So now we're going to get down to one of our important questions. When can I, or do I even use AI to create art? And this is going to highly be dependent upon the person and dependent upon the circumstance of the project you're working on. First thing I'm going to ask you, does the artwork need to be copyrighted? And the reason why is because right now the courts have a complex ruling, but the simplistic thing is AI cannot be copyrighted. Why do you think people are using it for the thumbnails? Why do you think people are using it in the blog posts? It keeps from having to worry about a copyright strike. So coming from a legal end, if you're trying to protect yourself legally and you don't need it copyrighted, it can be helpful right there. But if you have to actually create a work for a company and they want to copyright it, then you may not want to use AI as the final product. Now, you can use it as an idea generator. I have sat down and actually I'm working on a picture for a time-lapse short where I used AI just to randomly create some stuff, combining some lores together. And I picked one of the characters out. Now I'm going to try to hand draw it and try to do what I can in Krita. So you can do it for that sort of stuff. Some AI is good for filling in certain tasks. One of the things I was looking at the other day with an update on Blender is that they're actually incorporating AI to kind of speed up the process of some of the tasks so you don't have to do much of anything. Now, you can do AI if you need some quick selling of cash. If there is a market out there of people wanting to buy it, I don't know how good that market is right now because so much of it's free. But if you are good at, and you've actually mastered prompting in the case of Comfy, how to use nodes and the proper um, nodes that you download to help get you stuff, you might can make some cash, quick cash to help pay some bills, or just go buy you some chicken nuggets or a soft drink or McFlurry or burger from Burger King, whatever it is. Quick cash, as long as you, now keep in mind, remember when I said earlier about avoiding IP, just keep in mind that if you're getting into that, you do run legal battle. So if it's now, there's one that's floating around, I think Mike Tyson, done in the Studio Ghibli style. If Mike Tyson hired you to do a picture of him, I am going to actually have to add a little nuance here. That's one thing. Somebody hires you to do a picture of them, or if they go on the character, like Sega hires you to do some AI work, if that ever happens, to do some AI work with Sonic, then yeah, you're in the legal, you're in the safe. I'm going back to Mike Tyson because my understanding his tattoos actually copyrighted by the tattoo artist. And so technically it cannot be reproduced by it yet. So yeah, while you can do Mike Tyson, you would need to have the, from my understanding, now it might have changed, this is what I heard years ago. I kind of hear some stuff in and out on the stuff. I don't keep up like I need to be on some of the art news and legal aspects because I kind of fell out of doing some of it for a while. So that is something you need to do. So for me, AI is just another tool. I'm trying to learn how to use it. I want to incorporate it with all the other arts in my drawings, my video editing, and my 3D modeling. Just something else to use. So for the individual artist, it's whether or not you can sit there and are willing to learn how the skills it takes to properly prompt and use nodes to create specific work. But if you're just going to run in and just do a couple fun ideas, not that big of a learning curve. So in the end, it's just depending upon your personal preference and what you're planning on to do. And I think now there's probably some others I have not covered that I can't think of right offhand, but this has been basically the gist. So overall, many people are hating AI for just surface level reasons. It's here to stay. I'm sorry to the people who don't like it. It's here to stay. It makes things easier. Now we will be seeing refinement and probably niching down of its use over the next few years. Although considering how fast it's developing, it might be less than that. And I'm actually looking forward to what's coming up. We're on the edge of the next creative revolution, in my personal opinion. We're getting ready to see it. We're seeing a bunch of artwork, and we're going to probably be seeing some stars rise up from the ashes who's using AI to create the next animation feeds, whether the next digital circus, the next Has-Been Hotel, the next one to actually be good. Because if you know basic skills, if you know the skills of setting up a scene, if you know your art skills, AI is just a tool to help you create that, to create your dreams, to create your ideas. So it's still going to require work and knowledge on the prompter side to produce masterpieces, but the artists out there who've already adopted, they're working to that, they're getting to that, they're making bank with AI to pay their bills, and then probably some of them are doing it just long enough to pay the bills and buy the supplies they need to do the art they want. Me personally, I would not mind being able to generate a few thousand pictures of AI and just selling millions of them, or I can then go hire me an sculpture to sculpt the actual sculptures I want in my yard. While I would love to be able to do it myself, that is something that is a skill level I do not have, so I would have to hire somebody for it. But I hope this answers some of your questions, whether or not you should consider AI as a tool in your box of art supplies. Okay, that last part just was the best. Now all of this is scripted. Well, until next time, have a nice day.